Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ever Growing. I'm Sabrina. I'm the CEO of Evergrowth Coaching. Being a leader is hard. There are a lot of fears and lots of challenges working with people. And I'm here to share with you the biggest breakthroughs that I see in my coaching sessions working with 8 to 9 figure CEOs in tech. Now, some of these might be stories in leaders' most vulnerable moments, and some of them might be tactic frameworks and operational things that you can implement right away. And my goal is for you to listen to this podcast, implement a few things, and feel better as a leader and improve your organization in 30 days. So let's dive into the episode today.
How do leaders differentiate between urgent tasks and important ones? So, if you're a leader, you're probably getting lots of requests and asks and messages all day. And it's really important to have a great filtering system so you know what to take actions on and what can wait. Now, the first way of thinking about it is actually being very grounded and centered in what the company's top priorities are. So really taking in mind of your company's quarterly projects and then deriving them to monthly and weekly, right? So that you know what the company is supposed to be working on a weekly basis. Now, when you get tasks and requests, seeing if it's impacting one of those projects or really moving the needle on one of these ones. Just comparing it to those goals should be enough for you to take that first step. Now, there's another way to tell between urgent and important, and that has something to do with the requester. How existential is this request for the requester? And if I don't help them, are they going to have a really hard time doing their jobs? Now, an example of that could be, hey, I just had a terrible conflict with one of my peers or one of my managers or one of my direct reports, and it's really distressing. I don't know what to do. So even though that might not directly relate to one of the company goals, it is very distressing for one of your teammates. And if you don't help them or if you don't have someone else help them, they may not be able to go about their day normally. So in that case, I would suggest really assessing, are you the right person to help them? Maybe it's your head of people, or maybe you decide it's yourself. Then it's about making time to answering that request. So another thing that comes up in coaching sessions all the time is nobody wants to be a micromanager. And when we talk about getting better focus and delegating, a lot of the CEOs ask me, how do I not become a micromanager? I don't want people to think that I'm micromanaging. Now, let's take a step back. There's a core difference between delegation and micromanaging, and that's in the intention of how you communicate something. So you've all experienced this. A same sentence said in two different intentions can be received very differently. Now, let's say like a random example of, you did great today. I can say in just a matter-of-fact way, you did great today, and it could be a compliment. If I said something like, well, you did great today, it could be sarcastic. It could actually imply the very, very different thing. Micromanagement comes from fear and distrust. And when you feel fearful, when you're not trusting someone, and when you're actually trying to exert control over your team out of that fear space, it's a disconnecting emotion that will make others feel that. When we have an emotion from the communicating standpoint, no matter what you say, you can never really hide that emotion, and that emotion will always be received at the end. That's why when communicating, it's not just our words, but our emotions and our body language, right? It's a lot of things. And from that emotion and that intention, that's where we really get into the micromanaging area. So to be a micromanager, and I think I should explain how to be a micromanager, then you can see how to not be one. To be one, you need to really not trust that your team can do their jobs. And you need to be in a place where you think you can do the best job. And even if people do it a certain way, let's say it's 85% there, you're still not going to think it's good enough, and you want them to do it exactly your way. It's your way or the highway. So when that happens, your team is going to feel like you're prescribing them word for word what to do. Let's say to write an email. And once they write an email, you're going to go again word for word to edit it. And you're going to ask them, when are you going to send it? How are you going to send it? And then you might ping them, hey, after you send it, what did the customer say? And then you might, again, like give them other feedback, right? That all comes from a again, the intention of, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if you're good at your job and I'm the best at your job. Now, on the contrary, let's try on delegation and validation. I always like to say delegation is not enough. We need to validate, right? Proper delegation comes from a place of, I trust that you can do your job and I really need your help. And I want to help you do the best possible work that you can do. So an example might be, let's take the same email example. I might explain first why I'm delegating. Hey, Peter, my plate is super full right now. This email is really important that we deliver well to all of our customers. And I think you can do a great job at it because you've written our previous marketing emails before. And the way that I think we should do it is XYZ. So you are very, very clear about the expectations. Then let's say you have a specific vibe to the subject line you want to be, you could tell them that. It doesn't mean that you're withholding your preferences or experiences. You could be very, very clear about the expectations. And I actually strongly recommend that. A big mistake that people make is that when they delegate, they already feel so bad that they're delegating, they hold back on the expectations. Don't hold back. Explain why you're delegating, explain why you think this person is doing a great job, and give them the expectations. Once you give them the expectations, it's okay to validate if they're doing a good job. Hey, I would love to just review the email with you beforehand so that we're aligned on the tone, because what I would like to get to is, let's say a few weeks from now, you don't even need me to look at the tone anymore. But until then, I think we need to work on a little bit closely. This is again coming from an intention of, I think you can do your job, yet I have some information that I want to make sure that I give to you. Is that okay with you, right? So even though you might still be checking the email, people might be feeling completely different simply because you explain where you're coming from and you're shifting from a different intention. Now, you might ask, wait a minute, I might feel like a micromanager, or I might know someone who's a micromanager. How do I switch from that mode? Because it doesn't feel good to be that mode either. And you're absolutely right. For a micromanager, it does not feel good to be a micromanager because, again, you are swamped with fear and a need to control. You're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Now, I talked about this framework a little bit earlier, but it's about becoming aware of the fact that you are swarmed and swamped with fear. Get to the bottom of what are you fearful of, and then accepting the worst case situation. If what you fear actually comes true, can you accept it? What will you do? And then it's again asking for help and working on your fear. And this, if the fear is overwhelming at times and you can't get anywhere, consider trying out therapy, coaching, meditation, and some of these alternate methods. Because at the end of the day, if you're a leader, I really believe it is your responsibility to take care of your internal state. When you step into that role of a micromanager, you're projecting your fear out to your team, and you're projecting this cultural piece, this feeling in the room that makes everyone feel uncomfortable. And it's our job as leaders to be aware of that and take care of that on our own, so that what we project out is a sense of confidence, clarity, kindness, and competence, right? We can do excellent work in that situation. If you're CEO listening to this, you might be thinking, hey, like, I'm not a micromanager, I'm pretty focused, but my team is not focused. What do I do? How do I get them to behave in a different way? Now, I actually put in the word behave because leadership is about behavioral change. How do you inspire people to behave differently in a healthy way, right? And the reasons why teams are not focused, I often hear two reasons. One reason is they don't have enough urgency. And the second reason is they're too junior and they're not taking ownership of those projects. So let's talk about urgency first. What is urgency? Urgency is that sense of performance where they're taking projects and they're just driving them to the completion, and they're, moving in a fast-paced manner. Now, a lot of CEOs say the urgency kind of disappears when the team has crushed a few goals or they've raised a ton of money and they just see the team relax. But what's really needed is for the team to perform at a constant pace and a constant level of urgency. So if you see that happens, the first thing to do is to turn to your executive leadership team. At the bottom of behavioral management and change, your leadership team is your core group to go to because you alone cannot change everyone's behavior. If you're 100, 200, and beyond type of people, under 100 as a CEO, you could probably do it. So to rely on your leadership team, first of all, bring up that problem to them. Hey, I think we should be having more urgency in these teams and these examples. I'm not seeing it. What are you seeing? And just open that conversation and invite some extra information you might not know of. And then if your leadership team agrees with you, then it's about game planning. We need to think about what bridges to build to allow this organizational behavioral change to flow through. At the end of the day, it's setting people up for success so that they see the messages over and over again. It's about all-hand meetings. Are you presenting on urgency? Are you talking about it? Are you rewarding people who show a lot of urgency? And are you having one-on-one conversations to people who do not, right? And then there's bringing the all-hands meetings to making sure the leaders are communicating that into their team meetings and then falling into one-on-ones. Maybe you decide to put urgency as a performance review variable that people get to get feedback on. So think about all the things that you can do synchronously and asynchronously to provide that behavior. Another thing you can do is set harder and harder goals. So maybe the goals are too easy for the team to hit, and they need to be challenged 10 to 30% more than what they're doing to bring up that urgency. Now let's talk about the teams being too junior. So this could happen with a company that's been started with, let's say, a group of junior people who just came out of college, but then they did really well. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, the company has just exploded in growth. And you still have some of the team members who's never had a second job outside of this company. And it's very understandable that they don't know some of the things that works at other companies. And as a CEO, you might look at them and say, hey, when I hand you this project, you're doing your best, but you're not taking ownership in certain ways, and you simply don't have the experience. There are a few fixes depending on your unique situation. Number one is finding leaders to layer in. At some point, you're going to transfer your original group of folks to adding in outside people. The biggest mistake to hiring outside leaders to layer in current leaders is you hire for the corporate experience and overlook the cultural attitude. Now, I've heard it over and over again, people looking for someone who's led a 1,000-people company, led through multiple funding stages and scaled the company to 100, 200, 300 million revenue and brought someone in. Now, remember, your company is still being scaled up. And this leader might have not done IC work for the past 15 years, and that's not going to be a fit. The first group of leaders after you scaled up would be the type of people who still knows how to do IC work, who can be very scrappy, who can move up and down, and who also knows how to scale. Not a lot of people can do that, but if I look at my clients who had great hires, they always feel happier going with the ones who are closer cultural fits than experience fits. So layering the leaders and having outside leaders could be something. Second thing to think about is how do we train these managers and how do we equip them with support? Some of my clients will hire coaches, one like myself, to coach the entire leadership team. They would put up management workshops for the team. They would hire really experienced head of people to make sure all of the leaders are getting proper support and education. And as a CEO, the best thing you can do is to give prompt feedback. If you're feeling like your team is too junior, be very clear about what the new expectations are in verbal and written way for each levels, and then tell them where they're standing, right? Are they a 3 out of 5? Are they a 2 out of 5? Are they a 4 out of 5? And how do they get from one level to the next? Sometimes having that clear feedback and strong support around that management layer is quite enough to move people to the next stage.